Welcome everyone to the Thyroid Health Zoom call today. We're so glad that everyone is here. Looking forward to a great event this evening. I want to introduce our host today, Sarah Rule, who's actually a patient in our office. And she is also a registered nurse in the state of California and a certified health coach focusing on functional diagnostic nutrition. She really is specializing right now in helping women who are struggling with hypothyroid issues, and really has a huge why to help her clients who are experiencing these symptoms to really find a more natural solution. She gives a lot of one-on-one attention to all the people she's working with education and tools for self-healing so they can get their energy back, help get to an ideal healthy weight, get their mental clarity, and so much more. Much of her passion comes from her own personal story of reclaiming her health, as so many health coaches have, and seeing so many people who with suffering with these kind of issues that don't have the knowledge that they need to help recover on their own. So she's really determined through this event and through her coaching and through her care to help you and those you know who are struggling with thyroid issues to really be at their best. And as a two-time Ironman finisher, she knows what it takes for the long game and will not give up. She's also a wife, mom of two young children. And like I said, her whole family's patients in the office. So we're excited to have Sarah on here today. I'm going to have her get started, go through everything, and we'll have time to answer questions and things like that. There at the end, there is a chat function on this call. If you want to put in questions as we go, we'll schedule some time before we're done to be able to go through that. That being said, go ahead and take it away, Sarah. We're excited to learn what you're going to be talking about today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tim. I definitely wanted to start by saying that I have been on this journey myself, for sure. So as I go through this, definitely don't think that I'm just, preaching this to you. This is something that not only have I had to learn over time on my own pretty much, because I wasn't able to find people like myself to help walk me through this. And so partly due to my own journey with this, I've just become so passionate as I realize that this is such an issue for people. And it's still something that I work on, even though I've come so far. There's a lot to be learned, and there's still, health and the whole journey and the quest. It's not linear, and it doesn't, just end when you think you feel good one day. So with that said, I will go ahead and start with this disclaimer, basically just letting you know I'm not a doctor. I'm not diagnosing or treating you. And obviously, if you, are working with a practitioner, please continue to do so. And that's just my little disclaimer there. And so I'd like to go over what you will learn today. First off, we'll learn what the thyroid gland is. Why does thyroid health matter? What are some symptoms of a struggling thyroid, specifically hypothyroid or a low-functioning thyroid? What is underlying the low-functioning thyroid? What's causing that? And some easily implementable steps you can do now to help support your thyroid and health in general. Okay, so first of all, this lady was me. Fatigue was one of my hugest symptoms. By like 2:00 in the afternoon, this is what I wanted to do over and over. We won't keep looking at her, but I just wanted to remind you again that if you're experiencing fatigue, I get it. So we'll just jump into the basics of the thyroid gland. This lady up here, where her hands are, is approximately where the thyroid gland is. And the picture of the thyroid gland is over on the other side, and that is exactly what it looks like. It's just a butterfly-shaped gland. And even though it's little, it is mighty. It's considered the master of metabolic function throughout the body, controlling metabolism all the way down to the cellular level. And it is so important that you should know that every single cell in your body has thyroid hormone receptors, meaning that thyroid hormone is going to influence every single cell for one reason or another. And it influences a multitude of physiological functions throughout the body, such as your body temperature, So, a lot of people that have hypothyroidism, their body temperature tends to run a little bit low. Bone health, your metabolism, your glucose metabolism, hormone metabolism, nutrient absorption. A lot of times when people have hypothyroidism, they don't absorb nutrients as well. So then you're not assimilating those nutrients and taking advantage of all the great food that you should be eating. Digestion slows down, liver function tends to get a little bit stagnant. It's very hard to detox, and then fat metabolism is compromised, which is why a lot of people with hypothyroidism are challenged with um, weight gain. So this slide might look a little bit crazy. I only want to spend a minute on it to make sure that as I go through and I say things like TSH, T4, T3, you know what I'm talking about. So this is just kind of like thyroid hormones 101. The main thyroid hormone that we hear of a lot is thyroid stimulating hormone, otherwise known as TSH. And this is released by the pituitary gland, telling your thyroid there's not enough thyroid hormone in the blood, please release more. And this also happens to be when your doctor wants to assess your thyroid function, they typically run this lab. The next one is thyroxine, T4. This is one of the hormones released by the thyroid gland, and it is the inactive form. It needs to be converted to T3 in order to go to those cell receptors and do its job. So then we've got the T3. This is the active form, as I just said. This is really the gas pedal for everything, the metabolic accelerator. This is what determines your energy level, your metabolism, how fast you digest your food. Can it keep your body temperature where it needs to be? And of course, mental clarity. Now, then there's also reverse T3, which think of that as the brakes. So this is the opposing action to T3. We do need some reverse T3 just to keep everything in check. However, when this rises too high, you're counteracting your T3, and it tends to occur when you're under a lot of stress. And then thyroid binding globulin, TBG, this is the bus. So the thyroid hormones jump on the bus, and then the thyroid binding globulin takes these hormones where they need to go in the body. So when I refer to these, now I think you have hopefully a little bit better idea what I'm talking about. And so your thyroid does not just operate on its own doing what it needs to do. It's an entire team effort throughout your body. So starting with the brain, the hypothalamus and the pituitary are sending the hormone messengers to the thyroid gland saying, please produce thyroid hormone. And I also have here a little bit note on the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. I won't go too much into this, but I do bring it up later, which is why I do bring it up now. This system, the HPA axis, operates in tandem with the thyroid system, and it's super important. And if your adrenals are taxed and you're too stressed out, this whole system is going. The downfall of this system results in issues with thyroid function. So starting with the brain and then moving on to the thyroid gland itself. As you know now, this is what secretes those hormones into the bloodstream. They hop on the bus and they go to where they need to go. The liver is critical in the process of having good thyroid function. The liver is what creates the bus, okay, in order to take the thyroid hormone where it needs to go. It also is where the inactive form, the T4, is converted to T3 or reverse T3. So this is a picture of your intestines, and what I want to convey here is how important a healthy gut flora and your microbiome is to this whole process. So within the gut, there is an enzyme that produces T3. So this is in addition to the thyroid gland. Obviously, that produces most of it, but you also can get some production of T3 here if you have a healthy gut flora. Also, this location converts more T4 to T3. And then lastly, the circulatory system is how the bus transports the thyroid hormones to the cells and tissues. So you can see how the big picture here, and we need to take all that into account. So with that said, I'm wondering if any of these sound familiar to you. You're the only one wearing a coat when it's 75 degrees out. Maybe everybody wants to know why. Or you eat right, you exercise, and you cannot lose that weight under any circumstances. You're just trying to beat it off with a stick. The calories in, calories out thing doesn't seem to be working. Or your hair is thinning and breaking off, even though you've invested in all of those expensive salon products. Or you're so exhausted, no matter how much sleep, it doesn't matter, you're still tired. And it's a good thing you're too cold to wear shorts because you have skin that looks like alligator skin. It's so dry. And then here are some more just typical hypothyroid symptoms. And just because if your thyroid is low functioning, you may not have all of these. You may have them all, you may have some of them. And typically the more you have, perhaps the more progressed the situation has become. And I just would like to use this picture to start to explain how things work. So obviously, up in the branches and the trees, we see the diagnoses that we may get when we have a thyroid disorder. So there's hypothyroidism, or the autoimmune version, which is Hashimoto's thyroiditis, or hyperthyroidism, where you're kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum from hypothyroidism, or Graves' disease, and that is the autoimmune version of hyperthyroidism. But down below where the roots are, this is really what's going on underneath the whole situation. So, yes, you may be diagnosed with one of these things up in the branches. However, down below, these items, the impaired detoxification, the autoimmunity, the gut inflammation, infections, the toxins that we're constantly exposed to, nutrient deficiencies, oxidative stress, and then again, here's that HPA axis dysfunction. When something is wrong up in the leaves and the branches, it's because something has gone wrong down below. And the reality with thyroid disorders is this: 20 million Americans have some sort of thyroid disorder. And this doesn't even include those people that aren't even aware. So oftentimes, and this happened to me actually, I had symptoms, but originally, I was being told by my doctor, no, you're fine, everything looks fine. Well, then it got to the point where I did go get tested further, and all my doctor wanted to run was that TSH, and I'll get more into that in a little bit. But so a lot of times people are experiencing symptoms, but there's no specific diagnosis telling them that, yes, you're out of range, something is awry here with your thyroid. And the risk is definitely higher for women. A lifetime risk for a woman to have a thyroid disorder is 1 in 8. We are exposed to just this increasing amount of toxins, and we are barraged from every angle with chemicals that are not thyroid friendly. And our food supply is changing. So people are relying more on processed foods, less greens, you get less nutritional value. Ultimately, you have less digestive enzymes to start digesting your food, which kind of goes back. You're absorbing less nutrition. So it's kind of this cycle. And our modernized world is taking us away from how our bodies are designed to work. And one of the key things here is stress. I don't think, unless you're super lucky, most people are really under a lot of stress. There's a lot of responsibilities. You got to be all these places. We're just operating in this sympathetic nervous system state so often. And I'd like to touch on a couple of approaches to dealing with hyperthyroid issues. The standard medical treatments, which I know of and I've been faced with myself, really focus exclusively on the thyroid gland. So we're talking medications for thyroid, radioactive iodine therapy, surgery, whatever you're dealing with. If someone is like an endocrinologist or your primary care doctor, even, they're going to focus on thyroid specific things. However, I really like to approach this more from a functional perspective where we take a more holistic approach. And we need to ask why. What is going on underneath, down below? What are some of the hidden stressors that's causing this thyroid dysfunction? And then work on addressing those underlying causal factors so we actually allow the body to kind of reverse and get back to where it needs to be and function in a better state. So the way that I love to do this is really test, don't guess. And kind of the first thing here is the full thyroid panel. I talked about TSH. This is definitely something that a doctor will run all the time. Like, let's look at thyroid stimulating hormone, and then they base the determination of how your thyroid is functioning on that one value. The problem that I see with this is that, for one, the standard reference ranges for TSH range from like point 0.2 up to 5. And um, that does not in any way mean that just because you're within that range, that your thyroid function is optimal. That range is determined by all the lab tests of sick people, people with struggling thyroid, people with, hyperthyroid, as well as healthy people. So that's kind of one of the drawbacks to only relying upon TSH. The other thing is TSH, it fluctuates. So if you remember, TSH is a hormone released by the pituitary gland that tells the thyroid to release their hormones. It depends what's going on in the blood at that time. So depending when you get that lab result, you can't just base the decision off of that alone. So I highly encourage a full thyroid panel, which includes the T4, the T3, reverse T3, and we touched on these earlier, but thyroglobulin, and then thyroid binding globulin, and then these two at the bottom, the thyroglobulin antibodies and thyroid peroxidase antibodies. This gives us insight as to whether there's an autoimmune situation going on, such as Hashimoto's. So to not have that information is, to me, it's not appropriate, because we have to make decisions on what we're doing going forward with that information. Some other tests which are really valuable in this situation are micronutrient panels, so we can see where you stand with these micronutrients, because if things are too low, there's going to be issues. If things are high, we need to potentially adjust. Gut pathogen test. Are there parasites, bacteria, fungus, yeast overgrowth? That again will influence our intestinal or gut health, our microbiome. And we talked about the importance of that earlier. Food sensitivities is another really big thing to look at. There are some kind of main culprits that tend to cause issues like gluten, dairy, sometimes legumes, stuff like that. But you could be even eating broccoli thinking, oh, this is really healthy, but for whatever reason, you're having a sensitivity to that. And each time you eat that, you end up having a highly inflammatory experience that then your intestinal lining has to deal with. So then it causes breaks in that one cell thick lining, and food particles and the proteins from that food can actually get out of your digestive system into your general blood circulation. And that is called intestinal permeability. So all these tests can be big clues into what's going on and what's underlying thyroid issues. Okay, so I hope that did not disturb any of you too much, because I do have good news. Your body does want to heal, and it can heal. But you have to start believing, in your mind, shift your whole belief system into like, okay, we're changing things, we're going to get healthy, we're not going down the path of disease anymore. That's where we need to start. And it is possible to take control of your health and find your thyroid bliss again. I have this little testimonial here to kind of drive that home. The statement at the top, "You were the first person that moved the needle for my wife." That was a statement made by the husband of a client of mine. When she came to me, she was so frustrated. She was like hiring babysitters just so she could work out. She was working out like a total maniac. She didn't know what to eat anymore because she thought she was eating healthy, but nothing seemed to be shifting for her. She had rosacea, which, if you're not familiar with that, that's a skin condition. She had terrible sleep. And then, of course, she had extreme fatigue. And she would ask her husband at night, "Am I dying?" Obviously, her husband didn't know what to say to that. But Stephanie and I worked together, and we worked to pinpoint what was going on underneath all these things that I've been talking about. And we put together a customized protocol to allow her body to rebalance and heal. So I want to convey again that there is hope. And a little bit about my approach. As you could probably see, I look at the body as a whole system, not just symptoms, not just looking at, a few pieces of evidence here or there. We have to look at the whole situation and look for those hidden imbalances that lead to major opportunities to heal, and taking the individual into account. Just because two people have hypothyroidism doesn't mean that the underlying reasons are the same, and that has to be dealt with accordingly. So I follow a program or an approach that consists of DRESS. That stands for diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation where necessary. And so what I'd like to do is go through some of these suggestions and tips that hopefully, if you're not already doing, you can start to implement. So starting with diet. Every single thing we put in our mouth, it's like medicine. It's either going to benefit us or it's not going to benefit us. In some cases, can certainly harm us. So I would love to encourage you to focus on your nutrient density and eating foods that are going to deliver the best possible nutrients as you can. Always choose organic and non-GMO when possible. And then specific to thyroid, there are foods called goitrogens. And I have some listed here. And even though they have tremendous nutritional value and there's lots of reasons why you should eat them, they do inhibit iodine uptake. And iodine is what the thyroid hormones are made out of. So if you cook them, you minimize that situation. So still do eat them, but just cook them. And some other points I want to make is on what you really want to get out of your diet. The gluten, the soy, peanuts, refined sugar, and flour, these items are not serving if you have a thyroid condition at all, as well as the inflammatory oils listed here. In addition to those is our canola. Canola oil is highly, highly inflammatory, and most often these oils, especially if they've been heated, are rancid. Do not drink tap water. You really want to get filtered water or glass bottles. The reason being, I mean, there's a lot of things in tap water that we don't really want to consume, but fluoride is one of them. And fluoride actually competes with the thyroid hormone to attach to those cell receptors. On every single cell that I said has thyroid hormone receptors. So fluoride will attach to those, basically rendering that amazing T3, which you've converted from your T4, rendering that useless. And then avoiding alcohol, tobacco, and caffeine. And obviously that's of importance as we're trying to heal and get things back on track. Rest is absolutely critical to healing. You could be having an amazing diet and eating the best foods, all organic, but if you're not sleeping, it's kind of thwarting that whole effort. So some tips here are: you want to sleep in darkness. And if you don't have shades that accommodate that, you can invest in one of those really cool eye masks that are super sexy. I know my husband really likes that when I wear that. And you want to target at least 8 hours of sleep. Try to get to sleep by 10 p.m. if you can. These hours of 10 to 4 tend to be the best. I mean, this is when a lot of functions that are going on while you're sleeping are happening, like detoxification. And so we definitely need to focus on that time frame if possible. You want to avoid artificial light, especially the blue light 2 hours before bed. And because what happens is the light going into your eyes is signaling to your brain not to um, stimulate production of melatonin. Melatonin is a sleep hormone. So having that light going into your eyes and into your brain is really counterproductive for a good night's rest. And if for some reason you have to, I encourage you, get a pair of blue blocker glasses. You can get them really inexpensively off of Amazon. Some people really like white noise. It kind of blocks out other, noises to help you keep sleeping for 8 hours. And then develop a bedtime ritual. Just like if you have kids, you know how it goes. It's like you don't just, well, I don't know, maybe you do, but for me, I don't like to roughhouse with my kids at bedtime. I like to do bath, we brush our teeth, we read a book, and then they know it's time for night night. And adults are really the same way. So you could enjoy a hot Epsom salt bath, read a book. All these things are going to help kind of get your brain ready and set you up for a good night of sleep. And then exercise. Exercise and movement is certainly critical, and walking and yoga are really great things, especially if you're trying to heal your thyroid. The great thing about walking is you can do it in the morning. That when you get that morning sunlight, it actually helps set your circadian rhythm, which will ultimately help you with a good night of sleep. And then I really caution, kind of like the client that I referenced earlier who was working out like a maniac. Um, Overdoing it is not a good thing because it's causing extra stress. And this was actually something that I believe drove me to my issues. Training for Ironman, it was excessive training, and it was after that I started experiencing this. So that's just kind of something to keep in mind. Keep a balance. And then stress reduction. So when I say stress reduction, I'm really referring to anything, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, all the stuff your body is having to deal with, and it gets you into that sympathetic nervous system state. So if you can engage in something like prayer, meditation, yoga, deep breathing, coloring, whatever it is that kind of resonates with you, that will kind of shift you into that parasympathetic nervous system state, which is, you're more in the rest and digest versus the fight or flight, which we tend to operate out of way too much. Start thinking about replacing chemicals and personal care products with non-toxic varieties. A lot of the ingredients in these products, the companies that sell them, they do not care. They just want to sell you the stuff. But these things are actually, they're called obesogens and endocrine disruptors. When they get into your system, they actually end up getting stored in your fat. And the reason for that is because your fat is really protecting you from them getting to your organs and causing way too much toxic burden on those organs. So that can also, that's why they're called obesogens. But that can also be why it's so hard to lose the weight for people with hypothyroid issues. So on that same note, get rid of plasticware, replace with glass, stainless steel and wood, invest in cast iron pans instead of nonstick. And then, on the mental and emotional side of things, be aware of what you're thinking. This has also been another big one for me. No negative self-talk, really be aware of that. And when those come into your head, reframe that. Again, that's a huge stress when your brain is hearing you talk like this to yourself. And then lastly, supplementation. And of course, this definitely depends on, who I'm working with. Everybody's different, their underlying conditions, all of that needs to be taken into consideration. And I also love, love, love first getting what you need from food. However, there are some key recommendations that I've listed here that can help most people. And so these that I have listed here. The selenium is super crucial for thyroid function. Magnesium gets depleted really, really easily under stress, and most people are magnesium depleted. The probiotic for gut health is very helpful. And then digestive enzymes, a lot of times people with hypothyroid issues don't make enough hydrochloric acid to help break down the food. So digestive enzymes can help so that you can actually realize and assimilate the nutrient benefits from the foods that you eat. And then zinc and omega-3s, both two great additions. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Dr. Tim, for your take on this.
All right. Thanks, Sarah. So one of the things that I want to really focus on, in addition to all the things that Sarah talked about there, which is amazing. I mean, just the stuff that we went over, I learned a lot in the last half hour. One of the things we want to focus on is what's the underlying control of all function and healing in your body, which many of you who are already patients in the office and follow any of the stuff that we do is really your brain and your nervous system. And the reason I want to focus on this is because all the good things that we do, addressing nutrition, addressing toxins, addressing these things, without 100% nerve supply, it makes it difficult for your body to get the most out of any one of those things. So that's why chiropractic care is the foundation of all the things that we do. And really, when you look at it at its core purpose, chiropractic isn't about neck or back pain. It's not even really about the spine. It's all about the brain and the nervous system. And that's the master controller of all function and health, including things like the thyroid gland, a big part of your immune system, how your body perceives stress, how it deals with toxicity. The nerves in your lower back, as you can see here, go right into your gut. The gut makes up neurotransmitters of your brain. It affects hormones of your body. It affects your immune system. Damage to the gut, even from subluxation, which is a spine issue affecting the nervous system, can lead to autoimmune disorders, which can be one of the underlying reasons why you would get something like Hashimoto's, why the body would start attacking itself. A problem in your neck is the direct nerve supply to the thyroid gland. If you guys can see, right up in this area, right in the middle part of the neck, that butterfly-shaped gland, that's coming right from the mid to lower part of the neck. And I wouldn't tell you how many people I see who have, it's just a mini spine model, have what's called a loss of curve in the neck where the head has gone forward and they've lost the normal alignment. You can see these little nerves here at each level, they actually go out to the organs, glands, muscles, tissues of your body. So if you're having any problems with your neck, you've ever been in a car accident, you spend time on a cell phone, on a computer, you have postural stress here, likely there's already stress on the nerves that are not going into just your neck, but the nerves into your thyroid, nerves into other organs, glands, and tissues. That's what's called subluxation. When your spine is out of alignment, it's no longer functioning, it's affecting the nerves going out to your body. Problem is, you typically don't feel this. Only 10% of your nervous system detects symptoms or pain. And you have to lose 40% of function before you even notice a symptom. So by the time you're tired, by the time you're gaining weight, by the time you're diagnosed with a thyroid issue, you've likely had a nerve issue going on as part of that for years. And most people I see, their problems have been going on for even decades, from old traumas, old injuries, stress has built up over time. So as we round this all up together, when we put this in there, the best way to approach any health issue is a multimodal approach, to have a healthcare team of people who are taking care of all areas of your body. Sarah went over a number: nutritional testing, proper support, detoxing, the right types of supplements and nutrients. These things are huge. We're helping people take care of the underlying structural neurological issues, enhancing the function of the brain and the nervous system so you get the most out of everything that it is that you do. So for those of you who are already under regular chiropractic care, make sure you're consistent with that. Never miss an adjustment. Make sure you're doing your home care. Pay attention to your posture. Take care of your spine and your nervous system. It's your most important asset. And now you can start building on that and adding these other things in, getting support from people like Sarah to help you work through the other things that your medical doctor will not, that no medication can fix, that needs the extra help to walk you through that process. And for those of you who maybe are on here who are not currently under chiropractic care, that's definitely one thing you want to do as far as the approach of getting to the cause of many healthcare issues, whether that's a thyroid problem, whether that's pain, whether that's energy, sleep, or some underlying condition. or you just want to make sure that you're at your best, it's one of the most important things that you can do and the foundation of all the work that we're doing here in the office. So on the next slide, I have my contact information on here. You can send me an email here at our office at newlifechiopracticrocklin@gmail.com. If you want to learn more about the kind of care we're doing here in the office, that's not like most chiropractors, structural, neurological, regenerative type care, and teaching many of these other essentials like nutrition and detoxification, healthy movement, stress management. We go through all 5 of those essentials in our office as part of Max Living. You can find that at maxlivingrocklin.com. And if you're here locally and you just want to give us a call to schedule a consultation or find out more about how chiropractic care can help you with some underlying health issues, you can give us a call directly at 916-259-2682. And we're also going to spend some time for questions. If anyone wants to type in questions on the chat function. And I know Sarah is going to be sharing her information as well for all of you that want to reach out to her and get some coaching, get some help in these areas. I know she's a great resource. Like I said, a patient in the office and been helping a lot of people with these things. So I definitely recommend if you're struggling with thyroid issues to reach out to her at least for a consultation and find out what can be done to help you.
Thank you. Awesome. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and submit those to the chat. But I just want to convey that this is obviously a passion of mine. One, because it's very personal to me. Two, when I was working as a nurse and in the hospital, I was really struck and honestly saddened by how many people were living in these chronic states, and they simply didn't know that they could undo it, and at least in some aspect, and they didn't have the tools, they didn't have someone helping them, and that's what else has kind of driven me to where I am right now. And so I would love to talk with any of you. If you feel stuck right now, I can help you become unstuck. And I do offer, it's a 1-hour free discovery call. So it's like, we'll talk about what are you dealing with? Are you ready for change? And what we can do to get you unstuck. And, I can at that point explain to you a little bit more about my program if it seems like we're a good fit. But, and then also, if you go to my website, which is reallyyourhealth.biz, I have a little surprise there. Basically, you can download. It's an immune boosting smoothie recipe. Ooh. That is really delicious. It tastes like a creamsicle. So anyway, and this is my email here. I would love to hear from any and all of you. And with that, why don't we see if there's any questions?
So this I think is more of a comment than a question. I've struggled with Hashimoto's for decades, and I'm so ready for a change and would like to discuss this in more detail with you. That's awesome. Is the email the best way for someone to reach out to you, or that we go to your website?
Yeah, definitely just send me. I mean, you for sure do both, but send me an email and we'll get a call set up and we'll talk more about it. Thank you, Laura, for being here. Does anyone have any comments, questions? Look, I see something. Yeah, I should have specified that, Marlene. I do online. My practice is really virtual. So I help people all over. So I do online visits, yes. And yep, okay, your sister has an autoimmune disease. Yep, autoimmune can strike in many, many places. So, and typically autoimmune diseases kind of like to have their friends. So oftentimes people start out with one and then they get another and another. So super important to get a handle on.